Hello everyone, and today I'm looking at a low budget lens for mirrorless cameras, the Sigma 30mm f2.8 EXDN. It's available on Sony E-mount and Micro 4/3, so it's able to cover APS-C sized sensors but not full frame, and as far as I know it's not available for Canon EOS M or Fuji X. This is the slightly older version of the lens. There's a newer version available now with a smoother cosmetic design, but the optics of both lenses are the same. It's available for £160 or about $200, so for an autofocus lens that's a low price. The 30mm focal length is the full frame equivalent of 45mm when you're shooting on a Sony camera with its APS-C sensor. That is a nice standard focal length, giving you a little tightness to pick out your subject while still being wide enough to get you a broad picture if you take a few steps backwards first. The maximum aperture of f2.8 is not very bright, but it's much wider than your everyday kit lens at 30mm to help you get pictures in darker situations and get more out of focus backgrounds. Remember though, this little lens does not have image stabilization. The build quality of the lens is nice and simple. It's small, although it's certainly no pancake lens, and with its metal lens mount, it does have a little weight to it. It has a small and unusual 46mm filter thread at the front. Its main control is the focus ring, which turns quite smoothly, although it is focus by wire. It's electronically coupled to the focus motor, but when using manual focus, it's fairly responsive. One issue for the lens though is that while its autofocus motor is almost silent, it's also quite slow. And well, that's it really. It's a very simple little lens. How about image quality? I'll be testing the lens in question on a Sony a6300 camera with its demanding 24MP APS-C sensor. At f2.8 in the middle of the image, the lens is extremely sharp with very good contrast. Over in the corners, image quality is a little less biting, but still very sharp. It's a touch better at f4, where image quality now is just about perfect. The lens stays this sharp now until you stop down to about f11, where the effects of diffraction are causing slight softness. So, 10 out of 10 to Sigma. It may be a budget lens, but it certainly seems to be high performance. Let's see about distortion and vignetting. It's good news here. Only a little barrel distortion is visible, and even at f2.8, vignetting is nothing bad. If you stop the aperture down to f4 or f5.6, we see even illumination into the corners now. Let's take a look at close-up image quality. The lens can focus as closely as 30cm, which is good enough for smaller subjects. At f2.8, the image quality close-up is nice and sharp, and if you stop down to f4, we see a perfect image. Very good. How does the lens work against bright light? Pretty well, actually. There are a few wide, flaring artifacts to be seen here, but they're pretty transparent and unobtrusive. And finally, bokeh. When you can get them, your out-of-focus backgrounds will have an edge of busyness to them, but in all the images I took, they never looked distracting. Overall, the Sigma 30mm f2.8, when used on a Sony camera at least, is a very well done lens indeed. The focal length of 30mm is really useful for all kinds of photography. The f2.8 maximum aperture is reasonably bright, if not very exciting. The build quality is good, the image quality great. It reminds me of another E-mount lens I recently covered, the Samyang 35mm f2.8. The Sigma lens is certainly cheaper than the Samyang, but the Samyang is a lot smaller, a bit lighter, and is compatible with full-frame cameras if you upgrade in the future. In terms of image quality though, they are both really fantastic and come highly recommended.